Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be joining us. Thank you for making RaceSpot part of your day. This is, of course, the HPP series, powered by the iRacing Online Championship series. This is the HPP GT series that we watched for so long. We've had a little bit of a break, but we are back here at Watkins, Glen International for some prototype and GT action. Qualifying just about to wrap up. Let's take a look at the grid. It is George Sandman, Drew Reinhardt, Rory Windrum, and Martin Weir, as well as Brandon Gracia and Corey Roon with David Camara in the prototype class. Randy Chenroth, well, he's making his return here to the HPP series at Watkins Glen by qualifying on pole. And James Fritz is going to be starting outside of him. So let's bring in, as the GT field starts to roll up against that Mustang pace car that we are so very familiar with, our broadcast crew for today. It is myself, Cameron Walsh, Hugo Louis on the cameras, Rachel at Whiteford, and Alvin Ives, as we always are here. Anyways, as the cars are rolling out onto the grid, Rachel, we'll start with you. It's Watkins Glen. It's always a fast track, especially when it comes to prototype and GT traffic.
Sunny as Cam, good evening, of course, and wow, this track needs no introduction. Everybody here knows Watkins Glen is fast, it's technical, and well, if we're going to get a track where we'll see lots of prototype lapping, it's this one. Big straights will certainly be to the advantage of those C7R Corvette prototypes, so it's going to be an exciting one to see what can happen here, and we're looking forward to a great race.
And Alvin, as the cars are going to start their reconnaissance lap, not as many prototype cars as you would expect, but just enough to cause a little bit of trouble. There's 7 at the very least that have qualified, and well, these prototype cars, you can get yourself caught out. Watkins Glen, kind of a simple enough track, but when you add in this multi-class, there's always that element of danger.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Absolutely, but from what we have seen in this series overall, in terms of multi-class traffic, it shouldn't be a problem, as both classes have shown that they can cooperate with each other. However, this is a really high-speed track, and we may have some trouble with traffic today.
Well, certainly we may, as, well, you can never know what you get, but we normally have been seeing some fairly good racing here from the HPP series. A bit of a break, Rachel, but we gathered it back up here. Everyone seems to have gotten their spring chores, as it would be, out of the way, and we're ready to get back to some good old-fashioned racing here. It's been a while, but to say that Rust might have gotten on the car of the number 15 George Sandman car, well, not at all. He's qualified once again, almost a second ahead of Drew Reinhardt, who's going to be starting outside.
Yeah, he certainly is, Drew Reinhardt. Not able to keep up there with George Sandman, Cam, but one driver we are keeping our eyes on here, that is Randy Chenroth. He's qualified a full half-second ahead of the real field in GT class, ahead of BMWs of Fitzpatrick and Harris. There's also the Audi there of Austin Harris in 3rd position, 4th position in that class, but Randy Chenroth, he's always been a potent force in this series. What do you see what he can do here today, Cam?
As they are climbing up the S's for their reconnaissance lap, as they will make their way towards the bus stop, as it is so affectionately called. Well, Watkins Glen as a whole, it's a 12-turn, 3.37-mile track in this configuration, running both the bus stop and the boot, which you don't normally see in, say, stock car racing, but we are very familiar with sports car racing using the boot complex, as the Mustang pace car leading these prototype cars through here. That GT category, you have to wonder just what might come of it. You've got the Mercedes of Randy Chenroth, a couple of BMWs, and a few Audis mixed in, to say the very least. It looks like there's one car traveling around with some damage, the 71 of David Camara. Not quite sure what has happened to that Daytona prototype, but they haven't even gotten off the start, and something has already gone amiss.
Yeah, Cam, he went off in turn number 1, actually. We've just been watching this one here. He comes through the first corner, weaving to warm his tyres, and goes straight off the racetrack and slams into the Armco barrier. That is going to be embarrassing for that number 71. The clocks by Christopher Corvette prototype of David Camara. Yeah, I can only imagine he is incredibly embarrassed.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there might have been a little bit of a steering hiccup there or something along those lines. But anyways, they're coming up through here. This is really the road course section. I mean, I understand full well that the entirety of the track's a road course, but this is the roady road course. I believe that the sports cars are the ones that are only using it. IndyCar, I believe, is going to be using it. Not quite sure, as it's been quite some time since those IndyCars have roared. And as the Ford Mustang American Childhood Cancer Organization pace car gets ready to pull off, we'll bring everyone else in as we get this race underway. And we will get in a bit more in depth here, trying to figure out just what these GT cars can do and just what these prototype cars can do in open racing surfacing here. Now we've got about 77 degrees on the in the air, 78 degrees on the track. Winds are really negligible, about 3 miles an hour, and just about 39% humidity. That shouldn't affect anyone that too much. Track should be fairly rubbered in as that pace car is getting ready to pull off here. The final corner, number 12, going underneath the bridge as the prototype cars are all going to stack behind the number 15 of George Sandman. He is ready to get the green flag. As soon as the pace car pulls off, he is underway. Drew Reinhardt, he is already left behind as he pulls out to the outside line. Sandman does. The rest of the prototype traffic seeming to get away into single file quite hastily as the GT field gets underway. Randy Cheneth leading them. He will be able to clear and go into the outside as well. The preferred line going to corner number 1, R90 Austin Harris. He leans to the inside of James Fitzpatrick as the GT cars all get away, but there's nothing in it, and they will still go 1, 2, and 3 through the first couple of corners throughout the S's here. And Alvin, everyone seems to have gotten away fairly cleanly here in this opening lap so far, as Corey Rowan, well, he almost had a spin, but he thought better of it in that number 10 prototype.
Yeah, definitely seems like everybody has gotten on up to a clean start. But during this first stint, we should expect most of the field in GT3 and prototypes. They should be really close because this, like I said before, this is a high-speed track and slipstream will play a big factor on this first stint. So pretty interesting how they will manage this first stint and see who will go for positions and who will go to try to stay behind and try to save fuel.
Well, very much indeed. Fuel being very important. The GT3 cars are limited on their fuel tanks, so they should have to come in a couple of extra more times during this 2-hour race. Of course, that was by Berryman Products. Randy, he's managed, Rachel, to get quite a bit of a gap in this first lap here as the prototype cars are just about finishing out their first lap. George Sandman, he is working his way underneath the starter stand with Drew Reinhardt and Rory Windrum right behind. But you have to look at the GT cars. A little bit of a different story here as that Mercedes, he's pulling away. He's got about a quarter on Austin Harris.
He certainly does here, of course, as Andy Cheneth, of course, was dominant in the series in the BMW, widely regarded as the slowest car in the GT class. That gap for him is 1.8 seconds after a lap here as he moves to the Mercedes cam, which that team switched cars, of course. He is in a faster class, one of the faster cars in the GT's field, in a straight line. Advantages, something like Watkins Glen, of course, but fast driver anyway. This car typically seeming to lend itself more to his style. Austin Harris, though, in the Audi, has gotten through to second place. He is trying to wheel away at that gap to Randy Cheneth. We'll have to see what Harris can do as he's managed to get past James Fitzpatrick.
And of those Mercedes engines, of course, I hear that they're in rather high demand in a particular series, but we'll leave the open wheelers aside and see that the Mercedes does well in a box, too. Well, more of a boat. But it still goes pretty darn good around Watkins Glen. Not necessarily enough corners on their own to say that to really challenge the aerodynamics and the brakings. It's a relatively old-fashioned track, so you've got a lot of winding, high-speed corners, and that lends right to the high power of that Mercedes. The Audi, well, that mid-centered car, he's going to be having a little bit of interesting race on his own, particularly balanced throughout most racetracks. This one might be a little down on power, but that's all right. But he's getting hunted right now by the BMW of James Fitzpatrick, as we just said. BMW, well, it's a front-engine car. Got a bit more aerodynamics to it that really allow the front to grip, really allow that nose to bite on down, use the weight of the engine to grind those tires into the asphalt, allow it to turn, and help it get a boost on the acceleration. As we have one prototype car going through this GT traffic, that's Douglas Beard, as we have a fight for the lead right now. George Sandman under pressure, Rachel, from Drew Reinhardt as they go through the bus stop.
Certainly is. Drew Reinhardt sticking with George Sandman here, Cam. Really quite closer than we've seen before in previous rounds, so Drew Reinhardt really picked up his game here. He's sticking within about 2-3 tenths there of George Sandman. Gap is close. They are pulling away. They've got about 2 seconds right now over Rory Winderman, third place in the prototype class. They are definitely class of the field today. Looking at Austin Harris, though, that gap is starting to shrink towards Cheneth in that number 50 Mercedes.
Yes, and as we watch that gap also come down, just Alvin going to George Sandman. If you're Drew Reinhardt, I mean, George has been able to really have the speed all race long. He kicks up quite a bit of dirt all race long, I say. The race is only 3 laps old. All season long, George Sandman has had that speed in that Orion HPP race car. If you're Drew Reinhardt, what do you have to really focus on to not only keep up with him, but to challenge him and not let him slip too far away?
Well, definitely, George Sandman has been the class of the field when it comes to prototypes, and even though Drew Reinhardt has been close to him on most of the races, he really hasn't been able to capitalize. So in this race, it looks like it will be better to just sit behind and just drive a couple laps and just see how the car feels, save a little bit of fuel, because it looks like if there is a possibility of beating George Sandman, it could be on the pits with good pit strategy, because when it comes to speed, George Sandman has shown that he can be beat.
Yes, and a GT car, a BMW of Stephen Wetton, well, he was going to take the bus stop, but Reinhardt, well, he led really onto the inside, and ultimately, I'm not going to say he took the corner away from him per se, but needless to say, that prototype car didn't really expect much of the lone GT car. But for the most part, though, between Sandman and Reinhardt, they should have a bit of traffic coming up at some point, as we're looking to the cars of Austin Harris. Austin Harris has actually spun out, and he has clipped a couple of cars. And Rachel, I don't know if you've been following along here, but something has happened at the bus stop.
It certainly has, Cam. Just keep an eye on this one at the moment. Austin Harris heading into the bus stop there, just ahead of car of James Fitzpatrick there. We play up for you on the screens. Gets loose in that first apex there of the bus stop, goes round. Fitzpatrick avoids him, but he rolls back onto the track, not holding that brake there on that Audi 46 car. Collides with the number 3 machine there of Benjamin Perez. Not a huge impact for Perez, but, well, definitely embarrassing and probably damaged for the car of Austin Harris. Not what he wanted to have happen at this stage of the race.
No, not at all. And, well, Austin Harris actually after that had another spin on the heel of the boot. I don't think those tires really grip that well with the brakes going in the grass. Probably traction control or NA-like brakes probably are what I'm thinking of, or killing the braking power on that. But he ultimately came across and he clipped somebody. Not quite sure who, but actually it was Benjamin Perez, yes. And so he's carrying some front-end damage on his BMW. So already some action here in the HPP series. But you got to look, Alvin, at Randy Cheneth. Well, you know, he's managed to pick up that gap now. And, well, it's when the front runners behind you have an incident, that's you don't wish it, but, boy, it's nice to have that clean mirror.
Definitely, some drivers really like to be involved, be in the eye of the storm, and some prefer to have a little bit more of a nice gap. And I'm pretty sure Randy is really appreciating the 4.5 second advantage that he has over the rest of the field right now. So definitely, it looks like Randy at this pace, he may have the race already in almost secured, but of course there's a lot of time to go. But it looks like he he should be definitely having a very comfortable race so far.
Yeah, very much so. About an hour and 51 minutes left to go as we're looking to the cars over in the GT category, the 78 and the 98. Jared Jules, James Fitzpatrick, of course, a BMW on a Mercedes as they're going to be working their way up. And actually, Stephen Witten, he's lost the rear end of that car, so they're going to have to go to the inside to go around him as he picks up speed. But between Jared Jules and James Fitzpatrick, Rachel trying to pass a car that seems to have a speed advantage over you seems to be a very tricky prospect indeed. And for Fitzpatrick, well, he's got to start thinking just about where he can do it. And I can only really think of one or two locations where this BMW might be able to pull something on the Mercedes, but it's going to be a challenge to say the very least here at Watkins Glen.
It certainly is, Cam, and well, Fitzpatrick wants to try and make that move on Jewel, the 78 car up ahead, looking like he is fresh for the picking. The gap is not too big between those two drivers, of course. Only about half a second at the moment, but in front of them, that's 6 seconds to Kenneth. He's already exited the bus stop as they're just even arriving at it. That's a massive gap, so expect the fight really here to be for second place at the moment. This is going to be exciting because we are waiting for prototype cars to start finding the back of your field of GT traffic. George Sandman, he's going to the final corner right now. In the back of our GT field, well, they are running. Okay, they're just exiting, we're entering the bus stop, so it's about half a lap at this stage, so maybe 4 laps more, we'll start to see some lapping.
Yes, and looking back to Jared Jewell. Hello, Zoe. And James Fitzpatrick as her necklace goes rattling in the background. But either way, Jared Jewell and James Fitzpatrick, well, Fitzpatrick, well, he's using the grip that he has to really attack going through the toe of the boot, not so much in the heel. But here at finishing this back section at Watkins Glen, the car, that BMW, is trying very much so on to do what he can to keep up with, and I'm surprised actually that he's managed to keep up as well as he has as the Mercedes, as the number 69 car of Drew Reinhardt is in pit lane. Not quite sure what is going on with that. Unexpected pit stop from the number 69 prototype. Not quite sure exactly what that was for, but well, interesting to say the very least, Rachel.
It certainly is. We're going to try and find out what happened to him, of course. Seeing no issues at this stage for him. He's running well behind Sandman. No problems there. Just going to take a quick look at our lap counter for this one. We're, of course, running a 2-hour race cam. So I think perhaps this was the early start of a window. Drew Reinhardt, he didn't have any problems on the car. No contact, no off tracks. And he had no problems whatsoever, so yeah, I think as Alvin's is saying in the chat, I was about to get to that point, I think he's getting his splash and dash out of the way now. Expect him to run later in this first stint and do one more stop to the end here.
Yeah, and well, you know, he's trying, as I had thought, the thought process too, perhaps he was doing something along the lines of trying to get off strategy. Perhaps a straight blitz against George Sandman isn't going to come away with it, and maybe try to undercut. But that undercut is going to come off in quite some time now, as we're still looking back to that battle between the Mercedes and the BMW, Jewell and Fitzpatrick respectively, as they're working their way out of the boot. They're actually not that far behind Randy. I thought that incident was going to have slowed them up considerably, but they're not that far back. They're still just about within touch of eyes. But the Mercedes and the BMW here, interesting to say the very least, Alvin. But the BMW, he might be able to get him. He doesn't seem to be losing him in a straight line. And actually, the BMW might look to the inside here in the 90. No, he is not. But either way, trying to be that BMW behind that much faster car, I think it's one thing to get past somebody, but I have a feeling that Mercedes might be able to pass back if Fitzpatrick does get the pass.
Yeah, definitely. Although this track may not suit the BMW in terms of the top speed, as he goes side by side with Jared Jewell. Yeah, he's going side by side, and it looks like he's going to take the position. Yes, he does. Well, going back to my point, even though this is a high-speed track in terms of the top speed, the corners are also high speed, and that really does benefit the BMW high downforce package that it carries. So it's not like a track like Monza, for example. Like you have really high-speed track, but because the most of the turns are really so low speed, that's where you may see the BMW be at a real disadvantage. But at a track like this, really the BMW, the disadvantage that you may have in top speed, it's really neutralized by the high-speed corners.
Well, it is, and it's an interesting battle to say, and we will keep our eyes out on it. But looking to where George Sandman is in that number 15 prototype, he doesn't have a ton of GT traffic ahead of him, but right now there's a battle between Kenneth Rodriguez and Phil Mishaga, as it's a pair of BMWs with Stephen Hutton looking on behind, but he's a lap down as he'll actually have a little bit of an off-track. Seems to be missing his hood, that number 94 blue BMW. But as George Sandman comes upon the scene, this pair of BMWs and the Audi of Paul Wildridge, Rachel, could certainly prove to well, have an impact on Sandman's time, and perhaps maybe that would allow Reinhardt to catch up once they start pitting.
It certainly could do, of course, Cam. George Sandman, though, we know he's the king of traffic management. Expect him to get through this, no real problems. Lots of big, long straights here at Watkins Glen. Plenty of places for these C7R Corvette Daytona prototypes to get through without any real issue. So expect Sandman to handle this traffic in a very good fashion, of course, here coming up behind that BMW of, I believe that is, we've seen Corey Brown. Ruin is in pit road. It's the car there of Kenneth Rodriguez. Easy pass at the inside into turn 1. No time lost there for the Corvette. Gets it done in a great position, and he carries on.
Now carries on indeed, and as well, Martin Weir, he's currently flying in second position with Brandon Garcia and Maury Windrum closely pursuing. So if you took Sandman out of the equation, really it would be Weir, Garcia, and Windrum all within 2 seconds. Which would be a fairly decent show to say the very least. But for the most part, though, I mean, these guys are really trying on it, and well, we can't expect nothing less, Elvin, from these prototype cars. This C7R Daytona prototype, it always seems to do well here at tracks like Watkins Glen. Of course, made for Daytona, but pretty at home at Watkins Glen and Road America, or Road Atlanta even.
Yeah, definitely. That these tracks kind of really suit these prototype cars in terms of how high speed they have, the high speed nature of these tracks. Maybe on the low speed turns. Low speed tracks. Given that the car is really heavy, and even with the downforce upgrades that they got back in 2014 when Grand Am merged with
Alvin, sorry,
ALMS.
gotta stop you there. We've had an issue for the number 69 car. Alvin, that is Drew Reinhardt coming out of the toe of the boot. They're going to replay up for you here as he's come out the toe of the boot, well, the heel of the boot I should say, fast cresting left hand corner. Lost the back of the car, overcorrected into the arm curb barriers on the right there. That is, I believe, turn number 11 on the racetrack here. Turn number 9, I apologise. Turn number 9. That's the corner exiting the back of the boot onto the NASCAR Cup layout. And just loses the back. Big problems there, and he's out.
Yeah, relatively easy thing to do. You've really merging back onto the Cup track. As Reinhardt is trying to get that car fired back up, trying to see if he can get the crew to do a little bit more repairing. He's trying to communicate with the crew anyways. But either way, as we saw the replay of that spin, there's kind of a crown right where the NASCAR track and the road track merges. And if you just catch it just right, that car can really have a time of it and end up having a soft spin into the inside. But either way, though, that's unfortunate for Reinhardt. He seemed to at least have a decent strategy. I was really interested to find where it would have played out, as Austin Harris, who had that incident earlier, he is also officially retiring. So a couple of early retirements between David Kamara, who had that incident on the first lap, Austin Harris, and Stephen Wetton, who is currently sitting on pit lane, as well as Corey Round. That's 4 out off the bat here in the first 20-some-odd minutes here of the Watkins Glen International 2 hours, brought to us, of course, by Berryman Products. And George Sandman Rachel, though, he seems to be in command as he is weaving his way around the Mercedes of Chris Allen. He's going to be sneaking up on some GT traffic very quickly.
And he is, and while he has to deal with that as efficiently as he can, we know he's good at that sort of thing, so as he does it very efficiently there. But, yeah, just to kind of quickly hark back on the issue there we saw for Reinhardt, that corner cam, it is so tricky here. The car's getting light as it comes over that crest out onto the NASCAR Cup track. You're dealing with the left-hander, the car is unsettled with the weight, back end is light, and it's incredibly hard to keep the car under control there. You almost have to compromise that corner to survive the lap.
Yeah, and well, and of course, if one car makes an unpredictable move, it could get very hairy very quickly, as I think some of these prototype cars are going to be finding that out relatively soon. Drew Reinhardt, he is back with some new body work on that prototype. I kind of figured there wouldn't be a ton of actual structural damage, but it ripped the body apart, and it took them quite a couple of minutes to get that thing sorted out and put back together. But Reinhardt, he's back on track, but he is a lap down, as he'll have to work his way back up. Just looking ahead of Martin Weir and Brandon Gracia as they come out of the boot and back onto the road course proper. Well, Weir, he's going to have Chris Allen ahead of him. Chris Allen is actually going to spin as soon as I say his name. So just a little bit of, you know what, I'll give about 25% jinx. I won't go too far in on that. As soon as I saw him, he was already spinning. But either way, so Chris Allen, he's going to be just ahead of Martin Weir and Brandon Gracia as they're working their way. Prototype cars trying to maneuver their way through the traffic. It shouldn't be too tall of a task here, Alvin. But as they go up the S's, though, there's still quite a couple of treacherous areas to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, definitely. At least one advantage that both GT3s and prototypes have in this track is that they got enough downforce that they are not on the limit, especially going into the S's, which could be the really dangerous place going into those S's. It feels like it's a canyon. There is really no room for error. If somebody spins out, they will crash into the wall, perhaps play some pinball, and it may cause some mayhem. But we have seen the prototypes here exercise real patience and discipline going through the GT3s, and the GT3s being slow, they've also know how to cooperate and pick their places, and most importantly, use common sense.
Well, common sense indeed, as, well, patient decision-making always seems to make you faster. And I think we'll see that a lot from George Sandman. He's got a 12-second lead, so he doesn't necessarily need to be in too outrageous of a hurry to get around the traffic at hand, as Sandman's crossing the line to start lap number 14 here in that number 15 HPP Orion car. But just behind Martin Weir, well, he managed to catch another car just at the wrong time. Christopher Hacker and his Mercedes is going to be on the outside line as they work their way. This front stretch, Rachel, it's actually a little bit downhill, and for Brandon Gracia, that is definitely not what you want to see, but you know what, you should be able to get him before the S's. That allows Weir to get just a little bit more of that gap that he needs.
It certainly is, Cam. Of course, these prototypes really have to be patient. This is something they can really take advantage of in a straight line, but turn one, it's quite misleading on camera just how much of a slope and rundown there is into the first corner. It's a big steep drop into there, so not only are you braking from a high speed to decelerate for the corner, but you're coming downhill. As we see there, Christopher Hacker, the number 30 car, spins exiting the bus stop and goes for a trip into the gravel. No contact with anything else though, but you'll rejoin after that self-spin. Yeah, you're dealing with downhill and braking from high speed, so biggest braking zone on the track by far, really tough.
Well, it is, and having driven here, I was extraordinarily surprised having it only driven it in the simulator up until obviously that point where I fired up my car and I ended up getting out on the track was how deep the entrance into the boot was. I was very, very surprised. You wouldn't normally see that, and I don't think it's necessarily anything that's visually wrong with what we're seeing. It's just when you see it on a computer monitor, it's it just looks a little bit different. This seems to happen a lot, no matter which way you try to look at it. But at least I know full well that the track is that way. It's just I didn't perceive it to be that steep until I saw it in person. And, well, for the most part there, that entry into the boot, it's a real trouble spot, actually, if you're not paying attention. And you can slip that rear out just like that. And as Randy Chenoweth there, Alvin, heads his way towards the entry to the boot, he, on the other hand, doesn't have that much to worry about. He's got quite the gap against James Fitzpatrick and Jared Jewell as George Shaman goes past them.
Yeah, seems like Randy really is in a class on his own in terms of GT3, just like George Sandman is on the prototype. But going back into the entry to the boot section of Watkins, it's kind of interesting how the entry to the boot and when you get out of the boot, those two spots are really the trouble spots on this track, and it seems like those two spots seem to have the least amount of grip. On one hand, you have the entry of the boot, turn 6, which you're going downhill, and you really do not expect that turn coming in. And then when you start turning in, then you realize that, okay, I'm going too fast, and then to make matters worse, it's also off camber. And then you also got the exit that goes back into the NASCAR section, where it really doesn't match that part of the track really doesn't match with the crown of the straightaway. So it's really a rough transition. Like somebody forgot to really pave that in a smooth way. Well, hopefully with the last resurfacing that they did this year back at Watkins Glen, it should be now smooth. But yeah, on this version, really, it seems like that transition really catches many people off guard.
Well, it certainly does, and it's Watkins Glen is kind of one of those tale of two tracks. You don't normally have a situation where you have two primary series racing on two different configurations, but yet here we are. So it's kind of who you're trying to support and help. But hopefully with that repave, everything's been smoothed out. I haven't been there since they finished, of course, starting just after the NASCAR race last year and finishing just sometime this spring in time for one of the smaller, I think it was AER or Chump Car had their first race there just about, I think, maybe 4 or 5 days after they had completed. Well, next week we're going to have a big ton of cars there, a lot of Le Mans winning cars, to say the very least, as James Fitzpatrick, he is getting hustled up right now, Rachel, by Jared Jewell. And once again, you have to wonder here, Jared Jewell, he's got all that muscle, all that power, but does he have the tires as they're starting to end, maybe perhaps this section of the stint where the tires are just about starting to fade?
They certainly are, Cam. I think it's going to be an interesting one here. We think with how the prototype cars are making this a two-stop, obviously. I think for 2 hours here with the amount of on-throttle time, Alvin, I'm not sure if you'd agree with me here, but I think this could be a two-stop race for the GT cars. I'm not sure they can make it on one. Watkins Glen, typically so much on-throttle time, you do burn a lot of fuel, so maybe tyres on one of the stops we might see. Definitely no tyres on one of them, so these guys are going to have to make sure they look after those tyres. Perhaps make that one the tyre stop at this first one, of course, so you can run longer on the latter two. Alvin, would you agree with that assessment?
Under normal circumstances where you have the full fuel tank on GT3 cars, I will disagree with you. However, on this series, the GT3s have their tanks limited. So yeah, I do agree with you that this definitely looks like it's gonna be a two-stop race. Now, Whether the drivers are gonna change tires on both stops, that is a question to be seen.
Yeah, and well, I think from what we've been seeing earlier in the season was that cars were not necessarily taking tires both trips. They would get one fresh set of tires, and we'd been seeing interesting changes on when they were getting those tires. I think some people were taking them on their first pit stop, some were taking it on their second pit stop. Now, interesting to note here, excuse me, is that they only have, I believe, 2 crew members that can go over. So you've got, I believe, one on the railgun, one carrying that tire, and they kind of do their own little dance. And as such, changing tires is a rather lengthy proposition here in these GT3 cars, as James Fitzpatrick, he seems to be, yes, hello.
Did you just say one of the crewmen over the wall was carrying a railgun?
No, I believe, the rattle, R-A-T-T-L-E. Rattle gun.
I'm sure you said railgun. I mean, this is a whole different ballgame.
I'm a
These
bit
guys
of,
have railguns in pit road.
I've got a bit
got
of
a near fight going on actually here. GT cars battling position. That is Patrick and Jewel, the 98 and the 78 car there. As nearly contact with the car of Martin Weir. Prototype car took it 3 wide, passed very closely with your GT traffic, and well, there was nearly the effect of a railgun there as they nearly made contact and spun in the boot.
Yeah, well, nothing. You wouldn't be able to notice it from Martin Weir. He just kind of made his way through. Excuse me, didn't even flash his headlights as Brandon Grassi has been trying to follow, and it's been allowing Rory Windrum the last couple of laps to really catch up as these cars are fully merging here. The packs finding the other packs here. This is the front-running prototype cars with the front-running GT cars, as I believe Jared Jewell has managed in that hustle and bustle to make that position. And ultimately, though, as he skims a little bit of the grass coming off the exit of the heel, he'll make his way up and he'll rejoin onto the NASCAR circuit, and they will go start to finish this Watkins Glen lap. But you got to start wondering, perhaps we're about to hit lap 19. We are on lap 19 if you're George Sandman, and you got to start wondering, well, we're only half an hour in, but perhaps when you might start seeing some GT cars trying to pull what Drew Reinhardt did, Rachel, where he came in a little bit earlier than the rest of the competition.
Not really as possible with the GT cars here, Cam. Of course, these guys with the fuel limit they're running, as Alvin points out, that does mean they're going to be in a worse position in terms of strategy. They're locked more into a window here, so it's going to be a case of, well, I believe it's 80%, so they've got maybe a 10-15 lap window that they can choose to pit in here for this one, so it's going to be tricky to pull that one off, but you're not going to see as wide a strategy window, so expect to see these guys around the 45-minute mark, perhaps, I think, and I think they're going to want to make sure they do maybe a slightly shorter middle stint, but they'll probably definitely run long on the last one, so I think my vote will be tyres on this stop, Cam, short middle stint, long run to the end.
Yes, well, we will see. We will find out. I'm sure it's a relatively simple enough strategy to plan for. It's just in the heat of the moment, and perhaps maybe if you scrape up a little bit of damage, you never know what could happen. But either way, though, Jared Jewell, he has not been able to clean away from James Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick has been absolutely powering along there, Alvin, and he has been trying to get that position back. And, well, right now, he doesn't seem to have any prototype traffic to worry about coming from behind him. So he's just able to focus in his BMW to work on the Mercedes of Jared Jewell. And, well, I have a feeling these guys are going to be fighting for quite some time here for the rest of this hour and a half that we have left.
Yep, like I was saying before, this is a high-speed track with slipstream being the biggest factor in terms of if you know how to use it, of course. And it wouldn't surprise me if the number 98 is running behind and maybe turn the fuel mix just a click down just to save fuel, just to save some fuel, and perhaps stretch it. And who knows if he may be going for a one-stop strategy. It may be a little bit crazy to think about that, but there's always that possibility as well.
Well, yes, there certainly is. And, looking elsewhere around the track, you've got Randy Chenoweth. He's getting currently overtaken by Rory Windrum, Brandon Gracia, and Martin Weir as they're working their way through the toe of the boot. And Rory Windrum, he actually gets into the marbles, and he will send himself out into the outside barrier. And Rachel, well, that's sort of a hazard when you're trying to get past cars. He dove to the inside, and he overshot the toe of the boot by a lot.
Yeah, he certainly did, Cam. Not what needs to have happened at this stage of the race. That's just, wow, that's a little exciting. More than you probably want to have happen. Especially with your GT leader there just in front of you. But, oh, off he goes. Thankfully snapping to the left out of the way of Randy Chenoweth there. Not getting in the way of that car, but Randy Chenoweth keeping going at this stage. Jared Jewell trying to close in. They're still both in the boot section, so it's not all over yet.
Yeah, well, not over yet indeed, though that prototype does look like it will continue with minimal damage as he will cross the start-finish line, adding no less than 9 seconds to his last lap. So you know what? He only lost 9 seconds. That is something that could be made, as Rory's fastest lap today has been a 140.9, which should be right around the same ballpark. Actually, it's about a tenth faster than Brandon Gracia's, and Martin Weir had a lap in the 140s as well. So he's running similar lap times. Should be able to, at some point, perhaps through the magic of the pit stops, make his way up front and once again fight Gracia and Weir. But as the rest of the field seems to be cycling through here at Watkins Glen International, George Sandman is the one in charge. 33 minutes here at this junction of the race. I think we're probably going to go take a quick commercial break before we get to the pit stops proper, and we will see you right back on the other side. Of course, this Watkins Glen at 2 hours here at the HPP Simulation GT Series, brought to us by Berryman Products. And as George Sandman starts lap number 22, we will take you RaceSpotTV side by side. back here at Watkins Glen International. George Sandman completing lap number 23, starting lap number 24. He is about 23 seconds ahead of Martin Weir, Brandon Gracia, and Rory Windrum, which are very close. And then in the GT category, you've got Randy Chenoweth. He has got about a let's see here. It's probably about 20-25 seconds above Jared Jules and James Fitzpatrick. And ultimately, in the GT category, if you take away Randy Chenoweth, and really, if you take away Randy Chenoweth and George Sandman, this race is all open. There's hotly contested battles in both GT and prototype. And Alvin, this Watkins Glen circuit, a lot of cars seeming to go off, but for the most part, though, the front-running cars seem to be putting on a fairly decent show here.
Absolutely, the two front-running cars of George Sandman in the prototype class and Randy Chenoweth on the GT3 class, they really seem like they have those that car that really dialed down onto the racetrack, and they seem to have no problem. While some of the drivers have struggled here and there most of the time. The driver seems to been having a good time here.
Well, that they do, as we're currently looking once again at Jared Jewell and James Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick trying to drag the nose of that BMW, but it doesn't work. Trying to pass on the inside. If you don't have that pass secured, and actually, here goes the BMW looking to the outside, going from into the entry to the boot, and there's a prototype car arriving on the scene. It's Drew Reinhardt. Drew Reinhardt's going to have to work his way around two cars that are going side by side into the toe of the boot. This is where we saw Rory Windrum have his issues, and ultimately the GT cars, they will allow themselves to stack up Fitzpatrick behind Jewell in the prototype car. He will dive out, and it looks like Fitzpatrick wanted to lean alongside, but Reinhardt, he is going to be able to clean them out, and the BMW of Fitzpatrick, he had to host it up just a little bit to stay off the rear end of the Mercedes. And, Rachel, we're just looking here between the Mercedes and the BMW. These guys are putting on a storming show when I actually thought perhaps the Mercedes had the upper hand. Fitzpatrick seems to be reeling him in and able to really take the fight to him.
Yeah, it certainly does here, Cam, and Fitzpatrick's pushing really hard here. I'm really impressed with the performance of this BMW. By far the slowest car in the GT3 category, and doing really well here, holding us to one of the Mercedes, which is fairly a tough comparison. So, of course, he has passed him a few times and been ahead, so it's great to see that. Of course, up in third and fourth, we have two BMWs. We also have another one down in seventh place. That's Phil Misaga running on his own there. I believe that could be a teammate to to James Fitzpatrick. It is indeed. Fitzpatrick looks to the inside here, approaching the boot. Will have the line there into boot. Nice easy pass there over Jared Jewell.
Yeah, he will actually get on by. It got out at least a little bit for me there, Rachel. That's perfectly fine, though. We were able to hear the noise of the BMW as he tried to wrap around the outside, and he actually was able to get it done. And Rachel, well, he wasn't able to get it last lap, but, well, chalk it up to the BMW. He did it in the bus stop.
Certainly did, and that was well done from him, of course. A great passing opportunity there. Easy to have cooked that one, easy to have problems, but really successful pass completed, and just exactly what needed to happen.
Yeah, and, as we're just currently not counting down the laps to the pit stop, but we're starting to look more and more towards those pit stops. Those fuel-limited GT3 cars, Alvin, might be coming in at some point, perhaps the next 3 to 4 laps. I don't necessarily know. As Randy Chenoweth, well, he's bringing that Mercedes out one more time close to that tire barrier. He will cross the start-finish line, starting his own lap number 25. And, Alvin, when we do start to see those pit stops, I wouldn't be surprised if we see somebody short-filling for the better interest and possibly taking an off strategy here to try and recuperate some time.
Yeah, we could see a good variety of strategies here on the next pit stop. Like you said, trying to maybe gain some time on this on the metal stint, and perhaps to run two even 2 even stints for the last 2 stints, or we may see some people trying to just do their full service as usual. So yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting mix of strategies of how things we may go, but I can really say that between the 98 and 78, this 98-70 battle has been a really good battle since the drop of the of the green flag. I have to say, I'm pretty sure that the number 98 of James Fitzpatrick, he has to be saving fuel. You've been running behind Jared Jewell for so long, and considering the advantage that the BMW may have on the high-speed corners, but not on the straightaways. Yeah, it's definitely he must be saving something.
Well, certainly. I mean, even just a side effect. I mean, the Mercedes came off of the S's, and he was able to just blow by, going about 5-6 miles an hour faster, going on the outside. So these cars are using their advantages to certainly the absolute optimum that these drivers can pull out of these cars. And just looking around the rest of the track right now, George Sandman, he's continuing. He should be able to make it relatively comfortably as he is passing Rory Windrum, who has now just gone 1 lap down. I believe he had that incident earlier. And, well, as these cars are just settling away, Rachel, just getting into that mindset here of perhaps just hitting your lap times more than anything else, but at least for everyone else other than, of course, unless you're Jared Jewell and James Fitzpatrick, but trying to hit your lap times, trying to hit those qualifying laps, lap after lap after lap, especially when you're on a live track, can certainly be an interesting challenge to say the least.
It certainly is, and of course you're trying not to do just that, Cam. You're trying not to hit those qualifying sort of lap performances. You've got to remember, to finish first, you first got to finish, and you can be leading the race by a minute, a lap, 10 laps. If you have an error, if something goes wrong, well, you're in trouble. But as we look here, have a quick look at to the 78 of Jewell and the 98 of Fitzpatrick there, getting very close heading into the arch of the boot actually there. As it looks like, well, of course, Fitzpatrick got passed again by Jewell. This battle's been evolving all race long, Cam, and well, it's an exciting one to keep our eyes on. Definitely one of the closest ones in the category. Prototypes have spread out somewhat, in fact, a huge amount. There's not really much going on there, but definitely some racing here. As we see one of the Rory Windrum there, I believe. The prototype once again nearly going wide in the toe of the boot as he goes around one of the GT cars, but definitely this battle for second and third is close. As Fitzpatrick there dropped back from Jared Jewell a lot on that last run. I'm trying to find out what happened, but a bit sideways there by Fitzpatrick coming out of the toe. A bit of a wiggle as he comes out of the boot onto the cup track, and well, he gets under control, but he's dropped a lot of time.
Well, yes, he does, and well, that car's been giving him quite a bit of fits all race long, as I think we've seen quite a couple of cars struggling, and as well as somebody he was on pit road. Christopher Hacker is actually just leaving pit road, so don't think that was incident related. I think that might have been our first GT3 car coming in, but we have had quite a bit of incidents. I think there was a fair bit of marble buildup. Perhaps that was tripping up some drivers. We were talking off air. Perhaps maybe some people were just starting to overdrive the corners, which is certainly not something to be completely unexpected here, as you can really get yourself in trouble very quickly without realizing it. But as just we start to look towards GT pit stops, Alvin, I almost wonder if you, Randy Chenoweth, when do you come into your pit stop? Do you want to wait until everyone else has come into the pits, or would you rather go in first?
Well, considering the advantage that Randy Chenoweth has right now, he can pretty much run whatever strategy he wants, to be honest. He can go as far as he can before he comes to the pits, or he can even come in now and, hey, he can even, if he wants to, he can even try to come into the pits and perhaps not change tires, see how it feels, perhaps kind of like a test to see how it goes. But it can be a little bit risky as well if he goes with the no tires. Even with the advantage that he has over second and third place, which is 11.2 seconds. Yeah, it could be risky, but really Randy has a really he has options.
Well, options indeed. When you're the lead of the race, you can dictate the pace of who goes on the pit road, when and where. Maybe not so much in sports car racing, but certainly in oval car racing, to say the least. But definitely in effect visible here. And well, it's well, talking just about the track conditions. Again, it's 76 degrees Fahrenheit, 78 degrees now on the track temperature. Winds are still completely negligible, with a bit of humidity, and it's well, it's very overcast, and it does, Rachel, lend the track to give it some grip. Perhaps that extra grip's making a couple of marbles that allowing these people to overdrive it, or perhaps just the cars are just going faster than they're expecting.
I think it certainly is that sort of thing, Cam. And these guys have to keep an eye on what's going on here, of course. As problems start to evolve, we're seeing more and more cars dropping out of this race, which is definitely a problem. Number of cars multiple laps down now compared to your class leaders. So it's really making it quite a tough one. Rory Windrum goes down a lap in your prototype field, and everyone from about P5 backwards here in GT field is 2 laps down as the leaders come round to lap again. But we've got drivers like Christopher Hacker, who's an extra lap down due to incidents, as is Paul Wildridge, Kenneth Rodriguez, Chris Allen, Corey Root, Stephen Wetton, Austin Harris, and David Camara are all out of this race. So we've lost 2 prototypes and a handful of GT cars, Cam, but most people still running. This battle with Fitzpatrick and Jewel is set to reignite here as, oh no, we see Jared Jewell heading to pit road. He's making a stop now at about 50 minutes in.
Yeah, and George Sandman is actually following right behind. Normally you don't see their prototypes in the GT3 cars pitting at the same time, but here we are. So Mercedes, the first to pull it in. Perhaps all of those high-speed passes on the outside of the S's train that tank as, well, actually Randy Chenoweth is in just ahead as he snuck that Mercedes in. Not quite sure how it's the size of a battleship, but George Sandman, he's getting his service done. Randy Chenoweth getting his service done. A couple of other GT cars coming in down now, actually. Simon Malhuish is coming down. Martin Weir, Brandon Grazia, all coming in to the pit lane here at Watkins Glen. It's cement underneath these tires here at in the Watkins Glen pit service area as Sandman will light them up, and they're going to get out and away. That Orion car sponsored by HPP getting away in just a quick scant 24 seconds, 0.9. That'll get that prototype underway. And Alvin, well, we were wondering when these pit stops were going to happen. We saw the GT leaders and the prototype leaders all coming in.
Yeah, it really doesn't surprise me with the high-speed nature of this track, and like Rachel pointed out before, you are on the throttle for a lot of time here on this track, so you really burn fuel. So not really surprised that they are all coming at all at the same time. But I noticed that James Fitzpatrick, who is Ford now, leading the GT3 class, he is still on track, and perhaps he may be able to stretch it 1 or 2 more laps as... Nope, never mind. He's coming into the pits now.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of those things. They never like to listen to your strategies. As you're saying them out loud, I always find, at least, as I know from clearly from experience, that my strategies are clearly the best ones. As actually Fitzpatrick, he'll overshoot his pit stall by quite a bit. He'll have to shove that into reverse. He'll have to back that car up, and I think he might still be having some issues getting that service going in his BMW, but they're working on that car, that number 98 car perhaps. That will end up having some negative effects in the future, as just looking where about Jared Jewell is. Jewell is, Rachel, just coming out of the toe of the boot, just about to come into the heel of the boot, and just looking through. It's one of those things where these pit stops between different lap times, you want to see just when and who came out the right side and the wrong side of these things.
You certainly will, of course. Keep an eye there, of course, on James Fitzpatrick, who is still sat on pit road. Manager has resumed his lead, of course, but pit sequence here is definitely a tricky one. It's a lot of time to put in and a lot of time to lose, of course, but I mean, gap has been fairly static at the front of your prototype field, Cam. The Corvette Daytona prototype there of George Sandman, still about 24 seconds clear of Brandon Garaska. So no big change there, but of course, interesting to see where Patrick will come out in comparison to Jewel. That, I believe that was him just getting past as he comes out of pit road. Jared Jewel just clears Fitzpatrick, so this battle is back on again.
Well, and absolutely, I'm actually, for having to throw that car in reverse, you almost wonder what would have happened if he had a cleaner pit stop. Actually, looking between the pit times here, it was 1:03 for Jewel and, well, 1:02 for Fitzpatrick. So even with the issues on pit lane, his overall pit stop was just that much faster. I'm very surprised to see that. But I guess he must have had a very good entry and a very good exit. And, well, Elvin, Chapter 2 now starting between the Mercedes and the BMW here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, notice that Jared Jewell came in one lap earlier, while James Fitzpatrick came one lap later. So that means on the next pit stop, there is the possibility that it's gonna be 2 laps before James Fitzpatrick comes in, if things stay the same. And assuming that James Fitzpatrick gets a clean pit stop this time, it may mean a 3-second advantage over Jared Jewell, and towards the end of the race, that may
Well, it may very well be as the race goes on, and actually, you're talking about saving fuel, and well, he's locked in right behind that Mercedes once again. Not only is he going to get that draft, he's going to use less fuel going through, and well, it's just one of those interesting things here to see the BMW being able to keep up, have that pep in the step to keep up with that Mercedes on all but perhaps the very long backstretch between the S's and the bus stop chicane. But as these cars are working their way through, we've had our full cycle of pit stops, and right now just looking towards the battle here between Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum. Windrum, he's the one that's seems to have been having a couple of issues here, Rachel, and well, now Douglas Beard, who I believe might have started from the pits at the start of this race, is now fighting him for 4th position overall.
Yeah, Cam, he did indeed. Douglas Beard did start, in fact, on a pit road from the back of the grid. Moved his way up here in really good fashion, and he's about to pass some traffic, of course. He's fighting there with Windrum, but good pace from him, of course. Had to clear the GT field as he get past that Audi very, very efficiently. That's Paul Wildridge as he gets it done properly, as does Rory Windrum. So nicely made move by those two.
No, perhaps, and I mean, we're just going to have to find out here as Roy Windham, he's dancing on it, and Douglas Beard dancing on it as well. So just as watching these prototypes go, battles are starting to crop up all over the place. As just looking through here, where else we might find battles outside of our Jewel and Fitzpatrick showdown. And actually, you know what? This is going to be fairly interesting. The cars of Jared Jewell, the 78 Mercedes, and James Fitzpatrick, the BMW 98, are actually, if you look in their mirrors, is going to be Douglas Beard and Roy Windrum. So we're going to have these cars possibly being using other cars as picks. And I wonder if we could possibly get an onboard lap with Roy Windrum, that number 70 Corvette C7R, as he works his way around this Watkins Glen circuit, and probably going to be going past those GT3 cars as they are also going in through the fight. See, I'm actually surprised here that I thought the prototype cars would have caught just a little bit faster here as Douglas Beard, he is going to go off right in front of Roy Windrum, who's got our onboard camera, but I would have figured then to be just a little bit closer, but Jared Jewell a 147 and Douglas Beard a 142, so I thought the gap, Rachel, would be just a little bit bigger, but no, not to happen here, but as Jewell and Fitzpatrick are going to be having Beard and Windrum coming up relatively soon. It's one of those races so far where if you have a dance partner, great. If not, it's sort of one of those things where you might be out on an island. But for these cars that are in the battle, I don't think there's really many other better places to have that duel than at Watkins Glen here in Watkins Glen, New York.
Well, we're about to see an epic duel here, Cam. Of course, as Windrum and Beard, two Daytona prototype Corvettes here, are catching Fitzpatrick and Jewell in the boot here, so this could be very interesting. And wow, Fitzpatrick very close to back of Jared Jewell there in that 78 machine. That Mercedes-Benz being tailed unrelentingly by the BMW, but here are your prototypes gaining quickly. This is going to be critical. How easily do they get past? And this could actually hold up Jared Jewell here as they're going to catch him at the heel. It is. They're catching him right at the heel, but it catches them both out as they're both held wide. This is an interesting one to keep our eyes on here, Cam, as up we come up onto the cut play out of the track as advantage definitely goes there to the car of Jared Jewell, but in the prototype class it's definitely advantage Beard. He's managed to pull a big gap using his traffic.
Well, Douglas Beard, he managed to make the easy pass on Fitzpatrick, and then he just kind of left that car to the inside going into the heel of the boot, and he has certainly capitalized on that. The gap was less than 0.6 of a second that last time by as they cross the stripe. Now it's about 1.5 seconds. So advantage to the traffic, certainly to Douglas Beard. When you're the leading car, sometimes you can certainly get away with it. And for James Fitzpatrick, Alvin, you almost have to worry. You might just be out of draft range. I'm not necessarily sure he is, but I think if that BMW were to get out of draft range, I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to have the raw speed to catch him up.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, the gap between Jared Jewell and James Fitzpatrick is between somewhere around 1.3 seconds. He's definitely still within draft range for sure. But definitely needs to pick up the pace a little bit and be a little bit closer. Otherwise, like you said, he may not have the speed to catch up to him.
And as these cars are working into the toe of the boot, just having to take a look here. Windrum and Beard, that battle seems to have stabilized. Randy Chenoweth, he is currently your leader in the number 50. His Mercedes is carrying him along here in the Berryman Products Chem Tool 120, as of course Watkins Glen International home to yet another HPP Simulation GT Series race, as we have just about 1 hour to go, 58 minutes left in this event already. So half of it's done. We've probably got another pit stop, and for both classes, maybe not the prototypes, but definitely the GT cars. And we will see as these cars are circling their way through. It's not necessarily a Mercedes lockout, to say the very least. Fitzpatrick is making it interesting, and also here in the prototype division, a pretty hotly contested battle for second and for fourth. And we'll obviously keep our eyes on that as we are looking alongside. But in the meantime, let's see if we can find a car to go on board with here. Why don't we see if we can't, do an onboard lap with George Sandman to celebrate here this 1 hour, this halfway through 38 laps. So probably going to be about 74 laps then, if judging by how many laps we were able to do in the first hour, as George Sandman, the number 15 HPP Orion car, he is going to be moving his way through. I think he's got a little bit of traffic to work his way through.
He certainly does. George Sandman doing a great job in this race, of course. About to catch some cars now. We will be dealing with those in short order, we expect. That's one of those, the Audi of Wildridge. We've got a car ahead of him is Masaga, so to see what those guys can do in the short term now. As Sandman heads through the GT field for the third time here, Cam. This will be his third time through this traffic, so they're all used to just how he deals with traffic, how respectful he can be, of course, but you can't really help but you catch people, but you can try and make it easier here, as you see him behind him in the toe of the boot, and he will catch and catch and catch, and on the exit he can tuck the car in tighter, just take it inside line there, Cam. Doesn't disrupt the GT car is predictable, holds his racing line, prototype does all the passing. Textbook.
Yeah, that Audi helping very much by just leaning the car to the outside. It wasn't necessarily an active effort from both cars. They just let the pros of their cars handle it, and that allowed Sandman to get past as he'll go to Melhuish. And ultimately, Simon, he is going to be just ahead. That's a Mercedes here. Perhaps he can get him on the inside coming off of the exit to corner number 12. That is exactly what he is going to do. Sandman clicking off yet another lap, even though he passed two cars, still a 141.6. So looking back there, though, Douglas Beard and Roy Windrum, those guys are still relatively close. As the car of Rory Windrum, he ended up having a little bit of an oopsie doodle in the bus stop chicane. He ended up Elvin blowing the chicane, and he had to slow it down and give that time back. It's not bad having that runoff room there, though, but once again, resetting for Rory Windrum. This is the second time he's caught up. I have a feeling that this is going to be just yet another chapter in this battle.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like as they were going side by side, Roddy decided to better leave it going, let it go. But seems like Roddy was carrying a little bit too much speed and decided to discretion be the better battler and to not cause a crash, better blow the chicane and just leave it straight. Yeah, you do get a slowdown penalty, but you carry away, no damage done, you keep going with your race.
No, absolutely, and well, it's good to have little runoff rooms like that. Just if you're not out there, it's please continue to make more of them. By the way, speaking of runoff rooms, as it turns out, the new Watkins Glen surface includes a bit more runoff room than we might be used to here on the iRacing service, so perhaps this isn't just a suggestion. You know, if anyone were to be listening that might be connected to that, you know, we might be able to do with a nice laser scan of that brand new Watkins Glen surface. But clearly, Rachel, I'm not going to be partial to these sorts of things at all, as surely there are slightly more important matters.
Oh, you'd never be biased, Cam, in favour of Watkins Glen. That would never happen.
Or anything, really.
Definitely, this track, of course, definitely a favourite amongst racers here in the iRacing service, and a great one at that. One we enjoy racing here, of course, and we enjoy the racing that comes, because this one is always a spectacular event we always get.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, Jared Jewell, James Fitzpatrick going at it yet again, putting another chapter here. But I kind of wish, I hope these guys are regretting having black and white cars, because between the two of them, sometimes they look a bit similar, even though they are different car manufacturers, as the Mercedes versus the BMW. But, well, here looking through, as they both go off throttle, dancing, modulating, trying to get on that throttle, letting the traction control do its business, and before stalking through this quick left-hander and then the moderately quick right-hander to finish out another lap here at Watkins Glen. Actually, Jared Jewell, he is cut down and into the pit lane. Elvin, he is coming in. I think he is going to be getting the final stuff that he needs, and he might be running to the finish from this pit stop.
Well, that really wouldn't surprise me, to be honest, with the strategy that we've been talking, with the various strategies that we've been talking. Or perhaps Jared realized that if he kept running this pace, he was helping James Fitzpatrick with his strategy, so might as well break the toe now, and yeah, now it seems like Jared will definitely have an advantage.
He's climbed out of the car.
What's happened here? He's out on track, though, I believe.
No, Jared
not.
Jewell's climbed out of the car.
Okay.
You are right. What What's happened here for Jared Jewell?
He pulled into the pits. I figured we were talking about perhaps that was a good strategy. You can
Zoe
see
agrees.
on the cameras. There's clearly nobody in that car. Hopefully nothing was too horrible happening in the Jared Jewell pit box. But whatever it is, hopefully it'll get sorted out and he can hop in before they finish the pit stop or something. But either way, there dramatic turn of events to say the very least. And if you're James Fitzpatrick, you kind of got to look around. You've now got a fairly large gap between anyone and all by yourself. But in the meantime, though, not pick up in battles. Rachel, once again, Rory Windrum, that number 70 car, is catching Douglas Beard up. This is the third or fourth time he's done it. Let's see if he can get it done this time.
It certainly is. We'll have to see what he can do here, of course. But it's a great battle. This is the only battle we have left, of course, now. Jared Jewell seems to have retired that car. To the outside for the bus stop will go the car of Rory Windrum. Not going to make a move here just yet. That's a little optimistic round the outside into the bus stop, but as he will follow through again, just have to reset, let those tires cool down a bit, Cam, and he'll go at it again.
Well, he will, and really, these prototype cars, if you try to take the inside line at the bus stop, it kind of, if you were in a GT car, it would really track out, and it would be a very difficult maneuver. But if you're on the inside line in a prototype, well, it doesn't really change the line that much. It's a slightly slower. Ultimately, you have the downforce to carry you through. So trying to pass on the outside of the bus stops in the GT cars, certainly doable. But trying to do it in a prototype car, maybe not so much. Douglas Beard, though, kicking up just a little bit of dirt in the heel of the boot. Of course, he's probably trying to fight with a wheel, trying to recover as he comes back onto the Cup circuit, having had dirt on that wheel. As, of course, one of the lovely features of iRacing. But Rory Windrum, though, as he's trying to lock in Elvin, it's been 4 or 5 times he's been able to catch up. But to pass, it's repeatedly becoming a more difficult thing to actually get by that number 2 prototype.
It is definitely difficult, and one thing perhaps that we haven't mentioned, unlike the GT3 cars, which you can really hop into those curves and really use them and really go over them. These prototype cars, they are really sensitive to those curves to the point that maybe if you take way too much curve, you will damage the car and you will definitely get some more drag. So this is probably the possibility that why Rory Windrum has not been able to really go for the overtake going into the bus stop, because he is really concerned about damaging the car for using too much curb.
Well, 48 minutes left to go in this race, and well, it's really one of those things. You got to make sure that the car is available to you at the end. Wouldn't want to possibly end your race. They don't hand out trophies for being in front with 48 minutes to go. But either way, though, Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum, those guys are certainly the ones to keep an eye out for. And Jared Jewell, that car is officially retired, so hopefully everything is okay in the number 78 pit. If, hopefully everything is just all right, and we'll catch him in the future. But for right now, though, it's George Sandman and Randy Chenoweth currently leading. As before we hit the last 45 minutes of this HPP series, we're going to go cut away to commercial here, and we'll be right back in just a few moments' time. It's the Berryman Products Chem Tool 120 here from Watkins, Glen International. George Sandman in your prototypes, Randy Chenoweth in your GT division. Stay with us.
brakes to fuel boost and cleaning additives, Berryman is engineered to be the right tool for the job you need. So visit BerrymanProducts.com to get the rundown on the right chem tool or cleaner for you, and look for us at any of your favorite hardware or parts store. Berryman Products, demand the good stuff.
Back here at Watkins Glen International for the HPP Berryman Products Chem Tools 120. A beautiful aerial pictures brought to us, of course, with Ann Wern design pictures. But on the cameras has been Hugo Louis, and he's been bringing us a lot of this dramatic action. Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum currently catching the eye of those cameras as they are currently hustling their way up the toe of the boot, working their way towards the heel in the road course boot section of the Watkins Glen Classic track. George Sandman is currently our leader, with a 24-second lead above Brandon Gracia and about a 30-second lead above Martin Weir, with Randy Chenoweth currently leading. His gaps are just about 23 seconds over James Fitzpatrick and Simon Malhoish, about 52 seconds behind. So Chenoweth running away with it, so hopefully if he can continue to have a good run with 42 minutes left to go, he will be able to pull away with a GT victory. But George Sandman, well, 24 seconds, Alvin, it's not too much of a gap. I mean, one little mistake from Sandman, one errant GT car miscommunicating, and this could definitely be an open race, to say the very least.
That absolutely, but given how dominating George Sandman has been during this race and throughout the whole series for that matter, and given how spread out the GT3 field is right now, where no real battles going on, George Sandman can really pick his battles here and then. So it will really take something major for George Sandman to really make this more interesting for sure.
Interesting enough indeed, as we saw Windrum, while he tried to go on the outside again, Rachel, I just don't think it's going to work, as Douglas Beard, he ultimately, all he has to do is keep that inside line and he will have it almost every time. But Windrum, boy, that was so very close as they came through that bus stop one this time. I think Windrum's car is able to catch up. I'm not sure if he can actually get past Douglas Beard in that number 2.
I don't think he can, indeed, Cam. Douglas Beard running a great race at the moment. Just been the most consistent performer here of these two. Definitely had the pace. The big challenge is mounted by Roy Windrum, but he's not had it in him yet to make him really stick, of course, but big gaps to anybody else on the track. Of course, a lot of drivers running in pretty dry air. Martin Weir and Brandon Gariska. They're in a ballpark, 6 seconds apart. We could see a fight develop there, but as it stands in the GT field, really no close racing remaining anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're watching these guys here. Windrum, he backed off by quite a bit there as they will go around the stricken BMW of Benjamin Perez, going down the extraordinarily quick backstretch, hitting about 170-something miles an hour before they enter that bus stop. Perhaps this might not work out for Windrum's favor, but I'm sure we will catch them coming back one lap or another here. And if you're just wondering perhaps where that GT duel went between Jared Jewell and James Fitzpatrick, we're somewhat wondering the same thing. Jared Jewell had to inexplicably pull off into the pits, and hopefully not an emergency, something else that came up and everything's okay there, but he ended up having to end his day rather suddenly, and that's left James Fitzpatrick. Well, he was having an amazing battle. We were watching them go back and forth, and now that BMW can relax a little bit, though. His last lap, a 147.7, but Alvin, a 146.9 from Randy Chenroth. I mean, the Mercedes here and him seem to get along very well. This is the first I've actually seen him in a Mercedes, and he seems to be doing a very good job at that.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like Randy Shenwood is definitely having a good time with that car. As Rory Windrum comes into the pits now, so perhaps he is splitting his strategy in half, and perhaps getting some clean air and overtake Douglas Beer towards the end of this race.
Well, we'll see here. I mean, Windrum, he's currently sitting in the pits. I believe he's just getting his full workup in that prototype car as Rory getting his final pit stop done and dusted. Well, he hasn't climbed out of the car yet. They've replaced the front bumper. Nope, he is. If he wanted to get out of the car, it's too late. It's moving now. I mean, he certainly could, but that would be not suggested, as he'll pull out ahead of Randy Chenroth. And they will be heading up. And actually, Randy Chenroth, he's going to have to slow on up. And that's actually, well, he's trying to slow on up here as he's actually flashing his headlights, Rachel, at Rory Windrum. I really hope he realizes that is not a car he's supposed to pass.
I think he doesn't, well, I don't think he's going to stop it, really. At the moment, Randy Chenroth running very fast laps. Rory Windrum not really on the pace at the moment with some damage on that car. So we could see the unprecedented situation here of either a GT car passing the prototype. We don't think that might be the case, but it's not going to stop Randy Chenroth flashing his lights at that prototype in some sort of psychedelic fashion, I think.
Yes, well, of course, you got the 4 bright lights on the Mercedes. Well, actually 6 if you actually spend the time to count them. But as they are working their way through the toe, heading towards the heel, you have to start to look around and actually see who is currently fighting in the fights. Phil Mashiga, he's pulling away in his stricken BMW. And Drew Reinhardt, well, he had an incident early on. We thought he was onto something. He was certainly one of the fastest running cars. He's actually running faster laps than George Sandman right now, but of course, well, I say that, and just as I say that, George Sandman pulls a half a second faster lap. But between Drew Reinhardt, who was almost there chasing down George Sandman, Sandman really hasn't had to worry about anything, Rachel, and he's just going to continue plotting those laps down. We've already ran an hour and 25 minutes, but he's got to stay committed to the end. Can't let any slip-ups distract him, and that Orion HPP car can be brought to victory lane once again.
It certainly is. We'll have to see what he can do with this one, of course. George Sandman, absolutely faultless driver cam. Always performing to the absolute max in this series. Great performance by him. He doesn't seem to be beatable, really, in this series, in that Orion HPP Simulations car. They're stunning performances every single week.
Yes, and if you're wondering where we've been, well, the HPP series took a little bit of a break, but you know what? We're back now and better than ever here at Watkins Glen. What a race to start this all off. And if you're possibly interested. Hey, Watkins, Glen, I like that track. When are we going to go there? Well, it just so happens, and this is definitely just by pure coincidence, that this week, well, at least in 7 days, it's going to be the real-life Watkins Glen 6 hours in the IMSA series in real life, where a couple of Le Mans winning cars are going to be there. But this week here on iRacing is going to be our very own 6 hours of Watkins Glen. Coverage will start somewhere around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard, I believe, for the 6 hours of Watkins Glen. First split brought to you by RaceSpotTV. I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on. I almost thought we had another VLN race, but I guess not. I'm not quite sure. But either way, it is going to be once again getting picked up. Business gets picked up and comes in ebbs and flows as far as what you can see. But you can always catch it on the iRacing.com YouTube page and, of course, iRacingLive. So, anyways, the iRacing VLN race is on Sunday, and I'm sure there's going to be quite the cast and crew of characters bringing the Nürburgring to life once again in both sound and pictures, as George Sandman clears another couple of GT cars. And, I was going to say here's a battle, but actually it's a little bit reversed. It's the 13th overall car of Paul Wildridge and Phil Mashaga, who's behind him, but ahead of him, technically. And so, well, both wounded cars, and Rachel, Paul Wildridge, really the only Audi running in the entire field after Austin Harris's incident.
And here's, of course, Austin Harris. We lost him early on in the running after a self-spin exiting the bus stop. Involved a number of other GT3 cars. Yeah, Paul Wildridge running the only car left in that series, in that class. He's currently, I believe, running in about P7 or P8 cam as things stand. And the car pretty clean at the moment. No problems for him as this race goes forwards. P7, I was right. As, yes, he is trying to get some time made up, but really a lap behind most cars here. No real opportunity for him to make up any spots.
No, not at all, but all that speed, nowhere to really go, but that's just what happens when that one little incident catches you out at the wrong time and you have to make that unexpected pit stop. But ultimately, though, it's just taken away from what you're capable of doing. And, well, for the most part, though, I mean, looking at Drew Reinhardt, he's running good laps, but, I mean, as we were talking about, 2 laps down. Rory Windrum, well, he's officially down by 1 lap, but that's only because George Sandman has passed him. I'm sure he's going to be quickly arriving at Douglas Beard and putting him down a lap as well. And for Brandon Garcia and Martin Weir, Alvin, these 2 prototype cars, they're within touch as far as the visual goes. I mean, they're less than 10 seconds splitting Brandon and Martin, but at the same time, this is more of one of those Cold War battles where you're pretty much looking at the timing screen every once in a while and just kind of figuring it out from there.
Well, yeah, it's even though the advantage it's 6.5 seconds. That doesn't mean that there is a battle. Martin Weir seems like he's been running just a little bit faster here and there, but for the most part, they have been running similar times for most of the race. Now, they still have 1 more stop to go. So, interesting what strategy they will be running. Perhaps one of them is able to save fuel a little bit here and there, and that may be a difference. But 6-second advantage definitely, even though it's comfortable, it's not really the end of the race.
Yeah, and that's certainly something to remember as these GT cars are circulating. They have cured quite a bit of damage, though quite a few have retired, and actually looking at the retirements now. David Kamara, he had a bit of an incident on the pacing lap, trying to heat up his tires. I think he ended up out in the tire barrier out at turn number 1. Austin Harris had an incident early on through the bus stop, lost it, trying to keep the inside line and ultimately spun it and caused some damage, and then had another spin right after that. Steve Glen, well, he had a couple of incidents, lost the hood of his BMW, and ultimately they're having to retire Corey Roan, who was another Daytona prototype, and then the Mercedes of Chris Allen, the BMW of Kenneth Rodriguez, and then the curious retirement of Jared Jewell, who was running in a hotly contested battle with James Fitzpatrick for second position in the GT class. So hopefully everything is okay in the Jewell camp. But and then right now the final running GT cars, Paul Wildridge in his Audi, and Drew Reinhardt in the prototype divisions, your final car circulating in the prototypes. So Rachel, it's not necessarily a packed field, but it doesn't take that many cars for Watkins Glen to feel busy when you're a driver. I mean, there's a couple of laps where you're not doing much, but when you do get to GT cars, they kind of can just come out and pop at you. And I can only imagine if this track had another 20, 30 cars on as Brandon Gracia comes on down pit road.
He certainly is. He's coming down from what I believe was second place in the racetrack. It's been a good race for him so far, that Blackadder Motorsports car. Having a great performance for the Canadian driver as he will come in for his final pit stop here. Looking in the last 25 minutes or so, Cam, so this could be quite tight as the number 66 car. Well, he's already in, we know that much. But I think Hugo a little bit behind the rest of us as it stands. But yeah, this race in its final real blast here.
Well, 30 minutes to go, just a little bit of a sprint race, and we will be celebrating, of course, with the victors here on RaceSpotTV in the broadcast booth, as these Corvette Daytona prototype C7Rs have been absolutely rocking and rolling here at Watkins Glen. They're running about 6-7 seconds a lap faster than your GT traffic, which for Watkins Glen, it's really a circuit that you don't really think it's 3.37 miles, Alvin, yet here it is. It's a relatively long circuit, but the lap times are always down here.
Oh yeah, it is definitely. It may be a little bit kind of deceiving, but with the high-speed nature of this track, that's really why the lap times are really so fast. It's that it's really high speed for the most part. So yeah, it's a long track, but because of the high speed nature of it, the lap times are really short.
Well, and I am certainly not going to complain about high speed cars, as it's we don't normally get to talk about these things, but as far as a spectator track, Watkins Glen is actually one of the only racing circuits I have been to. But looking around, it's really easy access, and the views that you get from it are absolutely amazing. And so hopefully I'm going to be plopping up some pictures on on my Twitter feed. I'm not going to plug that at all, though. That's not what I'm here for, but I'm just saying. But it's easy enough to get pictures of these brilliant cars, and I'm actually going to be seeing quite a few of these cars that we're seeing here today. Of course, the Corvette C7R actively racing in the IMSA Series, the Audi currently racing, and I believe, I don't think the Mercedes is per se in the IMSA Series. I could be wrong. It could be a surprise to me, but still. Rachel, it's a real neat thing when you can see cars online in a service and then turn around and go see them racing in real life.
It certainly is. Very exciting to see that really happen, Cam. The chance, of course, to go to Alton Park recently myself. Great racing circuit there to see the British Touring Car Championship running. And it's surprising, just, having driven laps around there, of course, in iRacing, just how close that was to the real thing. It was absolutely exact. I felt like I knew the place backwards before I even set foot into that circuit. So exciting that we have this level of accuracy here in the simulation, and it certainly reflects in the racing you get on track. Of course, Watkins Glen is a timeless venue.
Well, timeless indeed. I mean, not naming any names here, but yet another Cameron came to save the day for the East Coast of the United States of America when Cameron Artsinger went, you know what, I think Watkins Glen's a pretty neat place. It'd be cooler if we had race cars. And you know what, for that, Cameron, I agree with you, good sir. And either way, Artsinger brought, of course, Formula One of all things. I mean, you couldn't imagine doing that in today's world, but he managed it. He brought Formula cars and then sports cars to the hamlet of Watkins Glen. And the inspirations from that track, which you can actually still technically, quote-unquote, drive today, of course, their town roads, they all went into this beautiful Watkins Glen circuit, and you know what? It's been a staple ever since probably, the 50s and 60s. I mean, every single type of car that you could possibly race has raced here. And, Alvin, I mean, it joins one of those few tracks... as my voice is slowly slipping away from me. It joins one of those few tracks around the world that is able to celebrate such a rich heritage like a Spa or a Silverstone.
Yeah, definitely. Watkins Glen, it's really one of those tracks that throughout its whole history has had a very rich variety of championships coming in and race when like you just mentioned, we had the Formula One cars at one time, but nowadays it seems to invite many types of racing. Of course, most famously nowadays for NASCAR, but now we also have IMSA running here each year on its 6-hour race that they do as part of the North American Endurance Championship. And I was looking at one of the questions that you had, that perhaps IndyCar was racing here at Watkins Glen, and I can tell you that yes, this year they will be racing here at Watkins Glen because they weren't able to close the deal with Boston. So we will see open wheel racing back at Watkins Glen this year.
I can only imagine the speeds. I think I was reading that some of the drivers were reporting lap times as low as a minute 24. A minute 24 in an open wheel car around Watkins Glen International. That is a frightening thought, to say the very least. Anyways, you are watching the HPP Simulation GT Series, of course, the Berryman Products Chem Tool 120 here at Watkins Glen. It may be a little overcast here, but for the most part, it has been a clean race as far as actual car-to-car racing goes, but a lot of solo incidents. And Rachel, it's been one of those races that actually have a pretty fair amount of attrition compared to where we have been racing, such as Montreal and other places. I know Lime Rock Park, I think, is at some point coming along the line. But quite a bit of solo incidents here, which is kind of a surprise.
It certainly has been, Cam, but I think this is one of those tracks that's a lot faster, it's a lot more open, so you tend to get a lot more solo incidents happening at a place like Watkins Glen. People are too encouraged to push the car too hard. You go to somewhere more difficult, like of course Montreal. You've got to be much more on your game in terms of driving the car anyway, that you are more under control, less in solo incidents of course. You go to somewhere like Lime Rock Park, less solo incidents, more massive pile-ups. I'm looking forward to that race, not for that reason, but because it's going to be exciting. I'm always a fan of IMSA running at Lime Rock Park. Classic track, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one of course. But yeah, this track is just so big, it's so wide, it's so open. You feel you can push this car so hard, and it will bite you if you just disrespect it.
Yeah, and George Sandman, well, he is pulling his car into pit lane, and he is going to be bringing that down the very long and thankfully very straight pit lane circuit here, unlike another American road circuit, Sonoma, which the Cup cars are going to in this weekend's time. But yeah, don't have to worry about that long right-hander. He's going to get his fuel. Not that much fuel needed to get 20 minutes of fuel is not much. as far as the prototype goes. He's going to get his tires. They drop him off the jacks. He'll squeal him out. He'll put up a puff of smoke, and off and away he will go. And that is going to be between the whole of it, about a 40-second down the lane. And Martin Weir is actually going to technically be leading this race, but really, though, we know, Alvin, that Martin is going to have to come in for another pit stop. But to say the very least, though, we kind of been talking about Sandman's dominance, but Martin Weir has been there all day long.
Yeah, he has been there. He has been all race, at least, and that battle with second place that he had with Douglas Beaver, but Douglas decided to come into the pits early, and perhaps by running some laps on cleaner, he may be able to get ahead of Martin Wery. But we still have 20 minutes to go. We should be seeing Martin Wery come in the next 2 to 3 laps, give or take, and see if Douglas Beaver's strategy will pay off.
Well, we will certainly see that. HPP sponsored Orion Racing Team car is currently working his way through the heel of the boot. You can actually see Martin Weir's 169 Corvette as he works his way out of the exit onto the Cup circuit. But either way, though, as well, actually, Christopher Hacker is now on pit road. He is pulling that car in. Well, that is very much so worse from where he seems to have had an incident coming off of corner number 10. We'll see if we can actually maybe get a replay of that. The number 30 Mercedes of Christopher Hacker, and now it's an incident that I personally am all too familiar with. And Rachel, he managed to park the car perfectly into that Armco barrier.
Yeah, he certainly did there, Cam. Not what he would want to have happening in this race, of course. Especially this late in the running. That's just really... it's one of the worst feelings for a driver when that happens. And coming out of the second last corner, you can really overuse that curve. It gets wide, it gets on the grass, and oh yeah, that car just goes straight to the barrier. Just goes so wide there. It's just... yeah, that car will completely turn left.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, he parked right in that Armco barrier. That is sort of, I will say, they have improved that a little bit in the repave, as that car has ended up pulling in down into pit road. Now looking at Martin Weir, well, he didn't come in last lap. Perhaps maybe this time he will. But overall, though, I mean, Martin Weir, it's kind of been one of those little things. I know that he has to come into a pit stop, but I'm just saying that it's still impressive, Alvin, that he's close enough to where if Sandman pits, Weir would get ahead. It would make me almost wish this race was a bit longer to see what these guys are able to do over a long endurance race, but maybe we'll see that in a couple of days' time. But for the most part, though, between those two, if I have to look back to the battle between Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum, an update on that, Elvin, well, it's not looking good. There's about 30 seconds, 45 seconds between the two.
Yeah, right now it's the advantage between Martin Weir and Douglas Beard is around 49.6 seconds. So it'll be really close to, yeah, definitely close. Kind of depends on how much fuel Martin Weir takes, and if he decides to take tires, of course.
Well, if he takes tires, indeed. And, well, you know what, well, it's a 4.2 second gap at the start-finish line, so I think that he probably should just get those tires and work with Brandon Grassi, actually, and this is interesting, Rachel, some pit numbers. If Weir comes in down the pit lane, his last is Douglas Beard is coming down pit road right now, as well as Randy Chenruth, as well as Benjamin Perez, as well as Simon Malouche, so pit lane getting busy. If Weir comes in, I think he's going to lose a position to Brandon Gracia as pit lane starts lighting up with cars.
It does, certainly, and pit road busy for the final time really in this race. These drivers really doing 2 regular stints with a splash and dash towards the end, as Randy Chenruth will be finishing up his pit stop at the moment, heading out on track, although that car might have an issue, Cam. He's sat still on pit road, jittering.
No, I think
no, he's out and away, he's out and away, out and away.
Yeah,
he's actually dropped a spot to James Fitzpatrick, and that, I'm not sure if that's for the for a live position. Let's see when Fitzpatrick last pitted. He has to pit again, so Fitzpatrick will need to come back onto pit road at the moment.
Yeah, and Martin Weir is coming down pit lane. We were wondering when that would happen. He doesn't have to take as much fuel, Elvin, but still that car, he might. Let's see if he loses a position to Brandon Gracia, as Gracia is coming off a 12 right now.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Now, seems like he may, he's coming out of the pits right now, so he definitely has or he may not. Let's see what happens. Yeah, he does. But also remember, he's coming out of the pits, and the 66 is coming with a good head of steam, so he may be able to close the gap by the end of the bus stop. And we thought that the battle was gonna be with Douglas Beer, but now Brandon seems to have gotten into this battle as well. So now it's Martin Weary and Brandon Warasha for second place.
Yeah, for second place in the motor race is Ware and Gracia. They've been driving around each other all day long, not necessarily in each other's paths, is the 169 versus the 66 Black Adam Motorsports cars. So this is going to be an interesting development here for the final 14 minutes of racing in the Berryman Products Chem Tool 120. And, well, we'll have to see what, we'll keep an eye out on that. And, well, looking through at the leader, James Fitzpatrick is currently your leader in the GT category. But, that's to say, I believe that he owes a pit stop as Randy Chenoweth. Well, he's not that far behind, and I don't think it would take many laps, Rachel, for Chenoweth to be able to catch up regardless. But still, just for what we've been talking about, dominating cars, there's still cars that are very well close enough to threaten in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, certainly is, and well, this race is in its final moments now, Cam, so we've got to make sure nothing goes actually wrong here, as the worst time for an incident to happen is right now. Patience, patience, patience.
Well, they say patience is a virtue, whatever virtue means. I haven't found that out yet. I'll perhaps Google it someday in the future. But either way, though, I mean, Chenoweth in that Mercedes, he has had that as, well, currently right now for the second position. Martin Weir, he's looking, well, he's defending on the outside against Gracia, who was looking to possibly scoot around on the long side, but that didn't work. So Gracia perhaps looking to scoot on up. Coming up through the carousel, they come about 125 miles an hour as they will go to the big drop going down into the boot here. The cars are both shaking a little as they come off of the exit. One clipping the curb, the Black Adam Motorsport car does as they go into the toe of the boot. Very tight, very uphill using that concrete. They are going to modulate on the throttles before tracking just a little bit off, and that 169 car getting off as well as the number 66 car on the throttles very well. They will send off into the distance. And actually, Martin Weir clips the grass a little bit, and this could potentially allow Gracia to catch up. But either way, Alvin, it's one of those things where these two cars, they seem to be catching each other fairly often now, and Gracia might have a very good chance of making that pass.
Absolutely. Now that the pit stops are pretty much out of the window, now this is just a straight up race and see who has the better car, who has the better tires, and who has the best skills going into 12 minutes to go now.
Yeah, and James Fitzpatrick, he has just cleared pit road. He served his pit, giving the lead back to Randy Chenoweth, which we knew was going to happen, but still, those cars relatively close together. And, well, Rachel, for all we've been talking about for George Sandman, all 5 prototype cars that have kept their nose clean are still on the lead lap, if you believe it.
Certainly are. So it's been a pretty close fight, of course. No real prototypes dropping down other than Drew Reinhardt, of course. He was back running after repairing that car. He is 2 laps down, running last of the running prototype cars, in 6th position at the moment, Cam. Of course, we have lost Corey Arun He's not actually in that classic car, actually, I apologise. So we've lost David Carrara. So Drew Reinhardt, last running car, 6th place, 2 laps down. Disappointing race for him, of course. He was second. Really one of the few cars bringing that fight to the car of George Sandman in that Orion Racing Team HPP car. But as it stands, well, GT fight has spread out. No real battling going on at all. We are winding down the clock.
Well, yeah, but still, one mistake could definitely change the pecking order there, as right now you've got 4 cars that are so far listed listed in that same lap of the GT division, as it's Chettereth, Fitzpatrick, Perez, and Malhuish. As, well, those guys are 4 laps off of George Sandman. It's kind of interesting to see well, in 2 hours just about of racing, only 4 laps between the front-running GT cars and the front-running prototype cars. So obviously it's always interesting to see the progression, as Martin Weir right now has Brandon Gracia on the outside. That Blackadder Motorsports car might just have it done. But of course, the top end of that 169 isn't going to get it done. Oh, actually, he might counter here. No, he is not. And Brandon Gracia, well, he's going to come away with it, Rachel. So very close. I thought Martin Weir definitely had an angle on the inside line, but he didn't take it. And now, actually, he had to back out, and definitely allowing that Blackadder Motorsports car to secure the 2nd position with just about 10 minutes left to go.
And here's that Ozam Corvette prototype in 3rd place. Well, 3rd place, that's Martin Weir. He wants to try and get his spot back, Cam. He's going to do everything he can right now to push forwards, but, well, time is running out, as Muse like to say a lot. But Blackadder car ahead of him, as so is just about to sneak off into the distance now. That's Brandon Gasaria. We'll have to see what he can do now, but it's getting tight, and, well, he's not going to want to give up, so we could see a really tight battle here.
Well, we certainly could, and time wins every single battle 100% of the time, undefeated. As, well, looking at that 169 car, Martin Weir, well, he's got to just collect it right back up. Don't let Brandon Gracia get too far ahead. And you can use that slipstream to get that car rocking and rolling up to meet once again here. Looking at the fastest laps, the fastest lap of Brandon Gracia was not that long ago, just on lap 62. Whereas Martin Weir, his fastest lap was ran somewhere in the 40s. Overall, though, I have to say Martin Weir for what he has been doing, for trying to defend, and for Brandon Gracia, who managed to make that pass. Very good showmanship between the two, Alvin. And we could have had an incident there 2 or 3 times, and yet both drivers managed to avoid it.
Yeah, definitely, and we could have expected a little bit more of racy type of overtake, given that there's pretty much just now 8 minutes to go, and when the pass happened, it was like somewhere around 10 minutes ago. So we could expect a little bit more aggressive defensive move by Martin Weir, but no, he knew that Brandon Goracha had the position, and he decided to let it go. And now it seems like Brandon Goracha is slowly pulling away, so we may see the end of this battle as well.
Well, I mean, one little mistake, and he could certainly have Martin Weir all over his rear bumper in that Corvette Daytona prototype. But as long as he's able to just keep the laps down, those headlights will continue to get smaller as we enter 7 minutes and 20 seconds left to go here in the Berryman Products Chem Tool 120 here at Watkins Glen with the HPP Simulation GT Series. And we'll see here, perhaps Martin Weir can make a comeback, perhaps not. We'll see if we can do an onboard lap with that number 169 as he chases down Brandon Gracia in the closing stages here at Watkins Glen.
Certainly well, Cam, and this is coming into the final few seconds now.
Yes, it is. And, well, just looking out the front end of that Corvette, well, you'll see just how Gracia's Gracia's car just twitching a little bit as it goes through the entry to the heel of the boot and going through. And now he's going through the toe well, it's just, you can see, well, Gracia is doing a fairly good job of covering the car. I think at this point, well, they've gotten fairly new tires. As they were able to get tires with 20 minutes back, and they're actually coming upon Paul Wildridge as, well, actually, some numbers that I haven't noticed a while ago is Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum, and just like that, they're together once again. Rory Windrum, I have a feeling, I don't know what has happened, but Rory has managed to fight his way back here, and now Douglas Beard has got to defend himself once again here, so things are kicking off in the prototype division in the closing stages here. And, well, Rachel having another battle here. Rory Windrum, he's looking to try and get on past that Douglas Beard number 2.
And he has Garasica and Weir has spread out a lot. Beard and Windrum, now that is going to be the fight we see towards the end of this one. This is literally the last seconds of this race. And, oh, Rory Windrum, he wants this place badly, Cam. He wants to try and get that Corvette prototype of his up into the 4th place. This is a battle of desperation now. This is the final laps. He has to have this one.
Yeah, well, let's see. Looking here, they're about 4 laps maybe to go. No, not 4 laps. Maybe, just maybe we could fit in 3 laps and have the timer expire late on the 3rd. But either way, just looking throughout here, Martin Weir ended up trying to get by Randy Chenroth, and I think Randy let him by without too much competition. That is exactly what Randy did, because he doesn't, unlike the prototype division in the GT, and this is not something we normally hear, Alvin, you don't normally see the GT cars spread out and the prototypes jam-packed, but yet here we are.
Yeah, definitely. This is some interesting dynamic that we've seen. Like you said, usually we see the GT3s more close to each other, and the prototypes perhaps could be a little bit more spread out. But yeah, it seems like we have 2 good battles here. One for 2nd and 3rd place, and the other for 4th and 5th place.
Yeah, closing up is Rory Windrum now on the straights. I almost wonder if that car isn't running a little bit lower downforce. And Rory Windrum, he's got the good exit coming off. He's going to try to do the outside on the entry to the boot, but I think Douglas Beard is going to be able to hold it there just for a little bit and then drag that prototype across. That'll force the cross from Rory Windrum. That'll put him on the outside of the toe of the boot, which is where he had that incident earlier in the race where he spun. And now Douglas Beard, well, he's leaning that car, Rachel, very, very heavily into defensive postures. He is not going to let that Rory Windrum number 70 car go without a fight. There's no time for that, as we are just about done with this here Berryman Products Chem Tool 120 race here at Watkins Glen.
It certainly is, Cam, and wow, what a race we've had here tonight. Of course, spectacular racing in the GT and prototype classes, just phenomenal racing, but wow, this is definitely coming down to the wire.
Yes, it is. So Beard and Windrum at the line. There's about 0.4 of a second between the two of them. Brandon Gracia and Martin Weir, it was about 2 seconds at the line. We'll see, though, coming up the S's, it'll be Douglas Beard, the number 2 all-red Daytona prototype, the hot rod red, I'll call it, between the maroon and black Rory Windrum car. And Rory Windrum, he's going to get the overarch. He's going to go to the outside. That's the line he's decided. This hasn't worked all race long, but you never know. He'll back out well early, but maybe he knows something. I think he realizes he is going to be able to get the better run. That is exactly what is going to happen through the carousel. Rory Windrum getting so close, but Douglas Beard, he's driving right in the middle of the track and doing everything he can to take up as much spots and places, or splaces as I just called it, as possible. And Rory Windrum doing the exact same thing that he did 1 lap ago. This time he commits to the outside line, screeches it out on the brakes. Well, he tried to hold it, but it's not going to work. And Rory Windrum, once again, he'll have to wait another lap, Alvin, as ultimately, though, these guys are really going at it now, and I am just waiting for Rory Windrum to possibly try something a little different, or perhaps next lap he's going to try the same thing, and it may work.
Yeah, now pretty much once they come on to the start finish line, they should be around. Let's see where George Sandman is right now. So he is coming into turn 11 now. So he will be on the final lap. But definitely the 2 and the 7, they definitely are in this battle for 2 more laps. So let's see what Douglas Beard can do to defend this position now.
Well, let's see. Indeed, this is where the action happens here, as we're about 1 minute to go. Well, actually, we're about 40 seconds to go, really, as Windrum, he's working his way up. We'll see if he gets the overspeed. No, he's not actually close enough there. Perhaps something went amiss that last run up the S's for Windrum, but you know what? He seems to be timing it fairly well. He knows he can't get him in the bus stop, Rachel, so he's going to try in the carousel. But Windrum, he's changing up the strategy here in the closing stages of this Watkins Glen race. I think we are so very close to the end of this race. I'm not sure if we're going to have another lap or not.
Well, it's going to be tight, Cam. We'll have to find out whereabouts George Sandman is, of course. He's at this time running down behind him, about to lap the back of his field, so this is close. These guys will have another lap regardless of what happens here, let's not forget. So George Sandman will finish the race behind them, of course, as on the run by Rory Windrum there in that number 70 car. On the 2 car of Douglas Beard, looks to the inside here in the heel of the boot. Can he stamp down on him? He cannot, and Rory Windrum has to settle back in line again.
Yeah, and now this is going to be an interesting thing here. You have Douglas Beard, the 4th position car, Rory Windrum, the 5th position car, and George Sandman, the number 15 HPP Orion Racing Team prototype, just behind in the 1st position. And this is going to be interesting because, you know what, Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum, they're going to get an entire complete lap because the checkered flag is out for George Sandman, and he has come away with it here at the Berryman Products Chem Tool 120, and the cameras quickly pan to Rory Windrum and Douglas Beard as they are going to really fight and see exactly who can come away with it between Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum for 4th position here. Windrum, he is getting hard on the accelerator up through the S's. They're already hitting 160 before they even come across Windrum. He goes far to the outside line. He'll try it on the outside of the bus stop. Hasn't worked all day long. It won't happen here, but perhaps he can get the overrun through the carousel. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Beard cuts a little bit of grass, but it looks like ultimately Windrum is going to be able to catch right back on up. Going into the heel, or going into the entry of the boot is, looks like Randy Chenoweth, of course, our leader in GT, is currently getting across, and almost contact between Beard and Windrum. Windrum possibly looking to fight on the outside line of the toe of the boot, and will look forward as Randy Chenoweth, he will cross in the number 50 Mercedes close to the pit wall in 1st position. Flag to flag for that Mercedes, and looking back towards the prototype battle that we have here that sparked in the last 10-15 minutes, Rory Windrum and Douglas Beard. Well, it looks like Douglas Beard might be able to hold on to it. I don't think the prototype cars can make too many passes through these corners, and I think Rory Windrum has realized that. He tried and tried and tried for the last 3 or 4 laps. Valiantly, he has tried all race long, and ultimately, though, Rory Windrum, he is going to have to settle for 5th position. Now, that's not a bad day at all, because Douglas Beard is going to be finishing in the 4th position here. A very dramatic finish to the end of the prototype race. And as the rest of the cars are streaming across the start-finish line, we got to look to George Sandman. Really a great race for him, Alvin. Very good running from both him and Randy Chenoweth.
Yeah, definitely a masterful race from George Sandman and Randy Chenoweth. Definitely both of them the driver to beat on this race. Commanding race from both of them. Never really challenged from the start. So yeah, really congratulations to both of them.
Yeah, congratulations indeed. And Rachel, well, I wasn't necessarily expecting the finish we got there, but 2nd and 3rd finishing 2 seconds apart, 4th and 5th finishing 3/10 of a second apart. Not bad at all.
It certainly was. What an incredible race we saw here tonight, Cam. Just amazing racing from all classes. Tight racing, and wow, what a finish we had there in the prototype class. Might have been 4th and 5th, but They race like the wind.
Well, absolutely. And now to look at the results page as it stands right now. George Sandman in 2 hours and 46 seconds coming away with a victory here at Watkins Glen. Brandon Gracia coming home in second, 35 seconds behind. Martin Weir, 37 seconds behind, only 2 seconds splitting second and third. Douglas Beard and Rory Windrum finishing in fourth and fifth. And Drew Reinhardt, what could have been? He had an incident early on. He'll finish 2 laps down, finishing out the prototype division that is running. Randolph Chenoweth, well, he managed to run from flag to flag, but there is so much more involved as he will finish this race 7th overall, and he will come home with the victory in the GT division. James Fitzpatrick finishing in 2nd with Benjamin Perez and Simon Malhush in 8th, 9th, and 10th, respectively. Phil Mishaga finishing in 11th overall. Paul Wildridge finishing in 12th. Christopher Hacker, the final running car, finishing in 13th, as we had quite a few retirements. And overall, though, a fairly good running here, 2-hour race at Watkins Glen International. And we're going to be bringing in our race winners, Randy Chenoweth and George Sandman, into the booth. And we're going to have some post-race interviews. So let's see here. Why don't we start with our prototype division winner of George Sandman? There he is, George Sandman, of course, pilot of the number 15 car, that Orion Race Team HPP car. Well, George, you managed to make your way back up to the booth here again. You're becoming a regular in here.
Yeah, I'm just going to move my cot and a sleeping bag and pillow and stuff up in there, if you don't mind.
That's perfectly fine. The air conditioning only works sometimes, but, you know, it's pretty bearable. But, either way, though, I mean, for you, the race was really on. Drew Reinhardt put on a very good effort at the beginning, but once he fell aside, it was really just managing the traffic here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, Drew was going to make it real exciting there. He was really staying with me there for a while, and then I pulled a small little gap, and then right around lap 5-ish, I started getting the heavy frame. I don't know what it is. It hits about every race twice right in a row. It'll hit it for about 3 seconds, and the frame rate drops down to about 10. So he was able to catch back up a little. But once that happened, and I was able to, and something happened to Drew in the last corner. I don't know if he had to pit, black flag, or something. But once I got away from there, I had to really concentrate more, because when you're leading and you have that much of a gap, it's so easy to make a mistake and throw the whole thing away.
Well, it certainly is, and we've seen all across history in different racing disciplines leads end up falling apart for one reason or another. Well, it didn't for you, though, and here at Watkins Glen International, you're able to pull away with it. No rust on the bucket here. You were able to just come home with it, get right back up to speed. Have a good, hopefully you had a good break, and well, this is a good welcome back to the HPP series.
Oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this series. I hope we can build this thing maybe next season, get some more participation, and that'd be great.
Oh, absolutely. And, well, either way, George, before we let you go, anyone you would like to give a shout-out to or a thanks to?
Yeah, shout out, thanks to my team, also to HPP Simulations for sponsoring me, and for you guys for putting on a great broadcast, and for everybody that puts on this series.
Well, very well indeed. So we're happy to do it, George. And that's George Sandman, your winner in the prototype division in the number 15 Orion Racing Team's car. Anyways, we're going to bring in a familiar voice. It's Randy Chenoweth. You came home in a Mercedes. I think you might have gotten the wrong car, but it paid off because you came home in first.
No, not the wrong car. It's just for the 6 hours as a Glen. Me and a couple guys decided to run the Merc, and I've done so much practice in it for the 6 hour that I just decided I was too lazy to do any testing in the BMW.
Oh, very nice. Very curtain on you. What you're saying is you didn't actually get out of the car. You just fell asleep in it and then woke up and showed up here in that car.
Yeah, I woke up in a new Mercedes, as I believe
it happens.
The lyric. I believe that's the lyric.
I don't even know what song you're referencing. But either way, though, well, I'm sure Rachel has got a couple of questions for you. I just wanted to throw it out there that I was expecting to see you in a BMW. They did fairly well here, all things considered.
Yeah, the BMW I think arguably would have been an even stronger choice. But like I said, with me and Joshua Chin deciding to run the Merc in the 6 hour is just seemed like it'd be good practice and a good warm up.
Well, certainly a great race from you tonight, Randy. That Mercedes, certainly one of the quicker cars here. Was that part of the influence in the choice of switching cars?
No, like I said, I actually think the BMW may have been the better option, but I don't know. It was I was actually surprised that I got quite as big of a gap as I did just watching, seeing the lap times in the practice session. I knew I knew I had a little bit of pace on everyone else, but I didn't think I'd be able to stretch the gap, but I did. I think I more or less just I think I got away early, and then those guys were scrapping with each other, and because of that, they held themselves up a lot. And then by the time that they were kind of settled down, I was 10, 11 seconds up the road, and from there, I don't know. I was honestly surprised to come away with a gap quite that large.
It certainly was a spectacular gap for you, and well, looking forward to seeing what you can do in the next couple of rounds. But dominant performance, flag to flag. What's going to stop you?
Well, hopefully we get some more people showing up. Jared, if Jared could increase his consistency, he'd be a contender for any one of these races. If we got Mark or Doug to come back, obviously they'd be very, very quick as well. But yeah, it's been a good championship thus far. 3 wins in 6 races, so can't be too unhappy about that.
Not looking like a spectacular championship. Shout outs, Randy, before we let you go.
Yeah, shout outs to Joshua Chin for helping me out, and shout outs for you guys for broadcasting the race.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Randy. Cam, back to you.
Well, just before we close up shop, just some final thoughts here. Well, if this were an appetizer, which it certainly wasn't, we had our fair share of racing. The racing here in the weeks to come at Watkins Glen are going to be extraordinarily exciting, to say the very least. And I'm happy to have brought this to you guys. Gotten some great prototype fighting here, some good GT fighting now with the action. Any final thoughts from you, Rachel?
Absolutely not. It's certainly been an exciting race. Not much I can really say, but looking forward to the remaining rounds of the series. This series does not disappoint.
No, not at all. And for, well, either way, just to start wrapping it up, of course, this is the HPP Simulation Sports Car Series presented by Berryman Products Chem Tool. Of course, brought to us by RaceSpotTV here on iRacingLive with Anwern Design. And as always, Hugo Louis on the cameras. I've been Cameron Walsh, and Rachel Whiteford and Alvin Nieves has been with us. And ultimately, we will catch you all next time, and we hope that you enjoyed the race as much as we did. See you later, and so long for now.